Hey, what's up, witches? It's me, Luna, and I'm here with a look at the full moon eclipse chart for May 5th, 2023. I'm sorry that I didn't get to put up a new moon chart, but it just, taking that aspect on its own, the Taurus new moon is all about planting seeds. It's about prepping our garden and putting things in the ground. So let's look at this chart. We have the sun at 14 degrees of Taurus opposing the moon in Scorpio. So Taurus itself is all about our connection to the external through the senses. That's how we connect, right? And it is sensual pleasure, so how we can enjoy Earth and all of her bounty with all of our senses. When you put the moon in opposition to it, the moon is in Scorpio, so this is the most difficult position of the moon, because the moon is about flow. It's our emotional body, and feelings need to flow in order to remain healthy. So if you think about water, the water element representing emotions, if we have flowing water, it's aerated and it's healthy and things can live in it. If we let it stagnate, then things rot. Certainly things can still grow in it, but they're not things that are good and healthy for humans. So Scorpio, being the ice form of water, is water that just doesn't move, and it's locked in. So we can have emotions that are locked in, certainly intense emotions. But one of the things about Scorpio moon that makes it the most difficult is that Scorpio is all about dominance and control. And so a Scorpio moon gives the tendency to want to control our emotions. And that's never really working out, because when we try to control them, we can end up locking them in. And when we don't let them flow and they're locked in the body, they can bring physical illness. So we really do want to take that Scorpio moon energy, that intensity, and shift over to the moon or to the sun in Taurus and say, how can I express these emotions physically? Because emotions are physical things. How can I move this energy through my body? Also, just as a more appropriate interpretation for the collective, let's look at the moon in Scorpio as transforming. So emotions have the ability to transform, so we can look at that positive aspect of it. That, people with Scorpio moons can certainly transform their emotions. Their emotions can take them through big changes. But the key is, and the trick is, that you have to be able to unlock them first so that they flow. But if we look at the moon in Scorpio as transformation of emotional, transformation of our response and our reaction to things, or a transformative reaction to things. And the sun in Taurus as our relationship to the material, or how we express our relationship to the element of earth. We can look at maybe transforming our relationship with stuff, with the physical side of life. This might entail just, the stuff that you acquire, the money that you have and how you feel about that, how that empowers you or not. Maybe you can look at your how you feel about your physical body, how you feel about the earth itself. What's your relationship there? How do you react to the changes that earth is going through? And, this is the relationship that we want to look at, emotions and the physical, at this full moon. These are the things that kind of come into tension. We also have, I'm going to stay on this for a minute, because we have that Scorpio-Taurus vibe, and it is reiterated in this Venus in conjunct to Pluto. Pluto rules Scorpio, where the moon sits. Venus rules Taurus, where the sun sits. Inconjuncts require an adjustment. So this underlines the fact that we really need to adjust our relationship to the physical, to the material world. Pluto, of course, takes things to extremes, And we could be talking about our extreme attachment to money or an extreme attachment to physical pleasure, sensual pleasures. Venus sitting and no wait, I'll keep on this line here. Venus sitting in Gemini can bring in sort of a love of pardon me, data, information, and it can also bring a little bit of logic to the process. With Pluto sitting retrograde now at 0 degrees of Aquarius, we bring in that Uranian energy of radical change. And Pluto itself has that radical change vibe as well. Pluto's is slow and gradual, and then when it finally erupts, it can be atomic in nature, whereas Uranus is unexpected, it's sudden, it's disruptive. So our relationship with stuff is definitely undergoing a radical disruptive change when you look at the last, chunk of years, and how the economy has bounced up and down and what the pandemic did and supply lines and all that stuff. So our relationship to the material has been very upset and upsetting. And if we're too attached, when things get hiccupy, it really impacts us on an emotional level. So Venus in Gemini here, I'm seeing, can bring a little bit of logic to the process, can bring in the thinking mind and not just the reactive vibe of the moon or the attraction principle of Venus, what I like, what I love. So what I'm looking at here, especially since if we look at the sun, it is applying to a conjunction with Uranus, which is ruling Pluto. The moon is also applying to an opposition with Uranus. So we bring in that vibe of clear the decks, everything must go. I have to update things. So this is an absolutely perfect time when you plant new seeds at the new moon of Taurus. Then we have to make room for those seeds to grow. So how do we make room? Well, we go through a mental and an intellectual, a logical process, looking at the things we have. So here's the Venus in Gemini, looking at what we have, maybe making lists of things, and then going through a logical process of, does this add to my life? Does this function for me? If I've got several of one thing, do I need several? How many do I need? Which one functions the best for me? Which one brings the most to my life? So we can really start thinking about things. And, Gemini has that back and forth kind of thing. But it does allow us to look objectively. There's the Gemini energy, is objectively. And let's look at the fact that Mercury is applying to conjunct the sun. So it's going to be coming up to conjunct Uranus in a little bit too. And so that reiterates that logical process. There we have the logical mind applied to the material. So we've got, when you have a chart like this, it's just wonderful. When you have a chart like this where things are reiterated again and again, then you really start getting a cohesive, strong, clear message. When I'm reading natal charts, I'm always aware of when I hear myself saying a similar thing or the same thing, and that can help you realize what in the chart is going to rise to the top and become more potent than other things, let's say. So we do have this, and the sun is bracketed by Mercury and Uranus. Uranus being kind of a higher octave of Mercury. Jupiter is as well, but this I'm thinking about the thinking mind, the intellect, and we've got Mercury on one side of the sun, Uranus being intuition, those leaps that we take mentally that don't follow a logical step-by-step process. So Mercury is that logical step-by-step process, and we're looking at our creative expression here and how we can bracket that with the sensible mind and the intuitive mind, and how we can bring a transformation in our relationship to the material through the logical mind and weighing the things that we possess and our emotional attachment to those things against our value system, our stated value system, which is also Venus and Taurus. And if you want to look down in the bottom right, you can see we have a super strong Taurus chart signature here. And, you know, Taurus, yes, about growing things and planting seeds, but remember that Taurus is a fixed sign, which means that it's future oriented. So we planted seeds at the new moon, and then we have to look at what it is we intend to grow. And of course, we have to think of this before we plant seeds, because if we want to grow tomatoes, we don't want to plant cabbage seeds. You know, we need to think ahead in terms of what we want to grow, but not just what we want to grow, but where we want to grow it. Have we prepared the ground? Is there room for this to grow? So here is where the weeding process comes. And if we go through this exercise of looking at what we value, how we're attached to it emotionally, how we can detach and think logically about what we want to keep and what we want to get rid of, think in terms of that, the fixity, think in terms of the future and what we want to grow. When I'm getting rid of things, I am creating space for the thing that I really want to grow to manifest. We have to create the space for it in our lives to grow. But if our lives are so choked with stuff and we have that emotional attachment to that stuff, you know, to the death is the Scorpio moon, it can feel like we're ripping things out by the roots with that Scorpio moon, but maybe they need to be torn out by the roots. Maybe we've got a belief system underpinning this, that if we get rid of some of this stuff, then we ourselves are devalued or we're going to be insecure. Time to identify those deep emotional roots around the stuff that we hold. Okay? Then we've got a Mars trining, applying to trine with Neptune, and that just really activates spirituality. It gives us a strong motivation, an emotional motivation, because the moon is ruling Mars here. The moon in Scorpio, ruled by Pluto and ruled by Mars. So we can say that the moon and Mars are in mutual reception here. They're in each other's signs of rulership. So we've got the moon trining Mars. We can be very motivated to do some emotional house clearing. And then we've got Mars applying to trine with Neptune, so that can activate the spiritual principle. And it can activate us cleaning things out at the subconscious level as well. Because Neptune rules the subconscious, it rules neuroses. And so we can be motivated here to really do that deep digging, not just into the emotional, but to the bedrock, which is our belief system. You know, and again, we look at our belief system. Is it in line with the things that I hold, with the stuff that I carry? And we can do a house cleaning there. How can I update my belief systems to bring everything into alignment and integration? Let's look at the fact that we also have the moon in conjunct in Chiron. So sometimes we can hang on to stuff because we have this wound, you know, and we've got the Aries, Chiron in Aries, the wound of having to go through aggression, maybe against us, or our own anger, all this warlike stuff that I've talked about with Chiron in Aries, us being a pioneer, and maybe how we've taken wounds because of that, and that we need to adjust our emotional relationship with that Aries nature, that Aries aggression. We got the Mars. Okay, I'm not going to go that. I'm not going to go down that road. Let's stick with the very cohesive, reiterated core message here, and that is time to transform our belief system around our stuff, align it with our actual beliefs, our actual value system, our sense of self-worth, applying a logical process to it, and you know, bringing in the spiritual too, activating the spirit in terms of the material. what we hang on to. Do we trust the universe? Neptune is all about trust. Do we trust the universe to provide for us, or is there a lack of trust there, which causes us to hang on to all kinds of shit because we do not trust that the universe cares for us and that, we will be able to provide for ourselves? Okay? Some interesting questions to look at. I hope that resonated with you. Remember that this is an eclipse, so it shines a very bright spotlight. And collectively, we've got this debt ceiling argument looming over us. So if we really look at the collective, it's got another whole layer of meaning. And we have people threatening to throw us off the economic cliff, which would destabilize the entire global economy. And let's use that Mars-Neptune trying to activate some prayers that we don't go down that road. I have a feeling that it's a big game of chicken right now. And I pray that cooler heads hang on and prevail. Anyhow, let me know what you think down below. If you have some insights that I missed, please let me know. And if you in fact liked it, subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you next time. Until then, this is Luna. Blessed be.